But if the COVID pandemic and 2008 economic crisis reminded us of anything, it was that we simply can't predict the future. We can prepare for it, though, if you have a clear income and investment strategy that account for worst-case scenarios. You can be confident in your retirement. Yes, even in the event of a recession. So call the Resource Center today at 417-882-1800 for your personalized plan to protect your financial security.
Good morning, Rogersville. Thanks for joining us once again right here on Dollars and Cents. I'm here with my good friend and financial expert, Bruce Porter. Bruce, everybody's scared.
I know.
You know, you got Jamie Dimon talking about a financial hurricane. Elon Musk says he's super worried about the economy. And they've got the resources to deal with it. But then there's the rest of us.
But we don't.
Well,
we got to count our blessings because, we live in the Midwest.
True.
I do not want to live on the coast with all the liberal mentality that's out there. So, with all that said, I think that we have to be, and I've covered it before, we have to be planning for tough times, whether they be short or long. I think we've got a plan. And I think there's some traps. That's what all this paper laid out here is. There's some money traps that when people get under financial distress, sometimes they make stupid decisions, right?
Absolutely, yeah, you bet.
We've both been there.
Yep, you get scared.
Well, you're looking at the current problem and you don't really care. You're just trying to figure out how to fix it.
Trying to make the pain go away.
That's right. So we're going to talk today about money traps. We're going to talk about buying a house. We're going to talk about credit cards. We're going to talk about fixed expenses at home. 401k loan. We're gonna cover some basis on that. And then if you were contemplating retiring early, under the current economic conditions that we're in with, all this inflation and stuff, I think possibly you're going to have to rethink that. And I'm going to give you some tips on how to try to figure out whether that's possible or not. If you're 62 or 5 or 3 or whatever and you were going to retire early, I think we need to have a, what do they call those? A family meeting, around the kitchen table.
Yeah.
I think we need to sit down and have a discussion about that. And like always, anything that we bring up, by all means, if you have questions or if you just want to sit down and visit, give us a call. Come
Absolutely.
To our workshops. Get acquainted with us. And we're here to help, period. That's just what we're trying to do. And they can call the office. It's an easy number, 882-1800. And you can set an appointment. Our summer schedules are manageable, so I think that you can do that. So let's dive right in. First thing we're going to talk about is buying a house. Now, the bubble has kind of come and went, right?
Well, that's what they're saying, yes.
Well, and the reason I say that is a typical home buyer. Let's just use an example of a young family of 4, buying their first house. Well, 20-30% down, that's usually tough, but that's typical in an 70-80% loan, 30-year fixed rate. 2 months ago, the rates were around 3.25. Now they're 5.8, going up.
Yep.
So, not quite double, but they've almost doubled. So I think that's going to curtail a lot of typical home buyers that were doing a traditional, conventional type loan. Now there are still ways, to buy a property if you're ready to do that. But I would caution people that when we're in a market that we're in, homes were selling for 20 to 30% more than what they're actually worth. We assisted a client in selling a house. We got 23% more than we listed it for, and the people were willing to go up another 20% to buy it. and we had 5 offers in 5 minutes, all cash, all sight unseen, all no appraisal, no inspection, close in 30 days. That's the environment you're in. And when you're in a competitive environment like that, it's hard to buy your dream house when 5 other people are willing to write a check that day and pay for it.
Yeah, it's supply and demand. We talked about that yesterday on the Morning Waffle.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can talk about inflation further, but that's the typical problem with buying a home right now is we have an inflated market and we have scarcity of money because it's tightened up. Now, I think also people get a little too aggressive in buying a home too early in life. If you have not settled into a permanent career, if you have not started a family yet, I don't know that it's the timing is right to buy a house. I think you could set back right now and wait for the markets to become more realistic and then consider it at that point. Especially if you just got out of college and you got your first job, that may not be the job you retire at. If you buy a house immediately and in 3 years you change jobs and have to move, you're looking at possibly selling that house, buying it at a peak, and selling it in a depressed market.
And lose money on
it. And there's no reason to do that when you could rent and try to figure out your family and your career and things like that. Career stability, very important to consider that. Now, let's talk about credit cards. Here's what happens when there's a lot of financial stress, inflation, volatility in the markets. People can only work so many hours, right?
Right.
And if you're in that hourly job, don't use your credit card to soften the effect of these high fuel prices. Credit cards have to be used correctly. A credit card allows you basically 30 days to pay for an item, so you can put it on there and pay it in 30 days. So if you don't have a credit card, but you think you might want to get one, then I think you should get a low limit credit card, whatever you're comfortable paying for every month. Don't, if you're just starting, don't go higher than $1,000 or $1,500, because if you get a credit card because they're making all these cool offers and that credit card's got a $12,000 or $15,000 limit based on your credit score.
Easy for that balance to creep up month after month.
It's easy for it to creep up, and it's going to create more heartache in the future, and people are tempted to offset inflation by just borrowing the money on a credit card. And I think we've got to be mindful of that as consumers, and if you can avoid doing that, you're going to be far better off. Now, let's talk about fixed expenses at home. Well, the fixed expenses, if you want the tip of the day, if you're struggling with paying bills or covering this excess expense called fuel to get back and forth to work, then by all means, call 882-1800 and talk to my property casualty department. And here's you a tip of the day. Everybody write this down. All you have to do right now to save some money is you mitigate the problem by raising your deductible on your car and home insurance. By doing that, you're going to free up some excess cash. Now, 6 months or a year from now, when hopefully we pray that things are better, then we can always lower that deductible back down. But you can create cash flow with that move right there, and it possibly will help you weather this storm. Another thing I think we need to constantly review is our fixed expenses at home. Utility bills, not that much impact, right? Cable bill, cellular bill, yeah. I think when times are tough, I think you've got to give and take a little bit.
Cut back some of those streaming services.
So I had a monthly car wash service. There's $35 that buys me a quarter of a tank of gas, right?
Right.
And so
exactly right.
I think that there's things that you need to review and see if you could do without an item for a short period of time, and then you could always go back in at a later date. Household bills a lot of times go unchecked. just routine. We're paying the bill. We're not really paying attention. We don't really, if my utility bill goes up $10, I'm not that overly concerned. But by golly, if your cell phone bill went up $10, you would jump through the roof.
Darn right,
and be mad at Verizon or whoever. Yeah. And so I think you just got to be mindful of that. Now, for those of us that are working a more permanent job, and you've got the opportunity to participate in a 401k like at work, a retirement plan, here's one thing that you need to try to avoid. A lot of people, and what we've seen in the past, when times get tough, people go to their retirement account and they do a loan. And so try to avoid that. Remember, retirement planning is for your old age. It's not for current events. And we've talked before about properly planning and having cash reserves for times like this. This is what we talk about. When times get tough, you fall back. You could use every dime of your cash reserves and do other things as a last resort. But, let it be a lesson to all of us. You never have enough reserve. Now, let me qualify that. If you've got 6 to 12 months of your annual income in cash reserves, keep working, and we're going to weather this storm. It's going to take a few months, maybe a year or two, but we're going to get through this as a country, and then we're going to move on. Don't go borrow money from your 401k. That creates all kinds of problems. It has future tax implications, and et cetera. So I think we've got to be mindful of that. Same way on IRAs. IRAs, typically, you can't make a loan against those, but people go and pull money out to weather these storms. And you have, if you're under 59 and a half, you have penalties, and you've got current tax, and it could have terrible repercussions against your earned income, and it could have you in a higher tax bracket. So you need to try to avoid that, all right? Now, lastly, I want to talk about those folks that want to retire early. If you're contemplating, a bad thing would be if I was going to retire this year, and now look what's going on.
Right, yeah. Who would want to do that?
So here's a tip that I try to educate people on how to properly retire. 882-1800, you can get a book called Finding the Courage to Retire. There's a lot of tips in there, but here's what I'm going to say. If you're wanting to retire next year, well, try living on what you estimate your retirement income to be right now for the next 6 months.
And save the extra.
Without touching your reserves.
Right.
And if you can do that under these circumstances, I think you're prepared to retire. If you can't do that and you dip into your reserves or you use excess money, don't cheat. Then I think,
no credit cards.
I think that you've got to rethink that, and you're going to have to postpone that for a little bit. Retirement budget is very important. Cash reserves as you go in, debt control. You can't be maintaining a lot of debt into retirement. And then I think you've got to contemplate, where can I go, find something I love and make a job out of it, I like to mow.
Yeah.
So
you can mow my yard. I'm not a big fan.
Maybe when I retire, I can come mow your yard.
You can mow my yard.
See, I've already got a job.
And I'll be your private chef.
Yeah. We could just trade.
We could just trade. Yeah, that
so
would work
out. So hopefully this helps. Times are tough. Don't hesitate to call. We can talk through all this stuff and help you figure it out. But it's not going to be over for a few months. So let's all dig in and get ready.
Yep. Thanks for being here, Bruce. Rogersville, thanks for watching. We'll be back next week with more Dollars and Cents.
Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC. AE Wealth Management and the Resource Center, Inc. are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet a particular need of an individual situation. The Resource Center, Inc. is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this podcast shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein, provided by third parties, have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by the Resource Center, Inc. This podcast is a paid placement.